The interview with Martin Lamprecht, Director, CKR Mechanical Consulting Engineers, 14 May 2018, 300 hours. Martin, we're discussing the fourth industrial revolution. Are you aware of the terms Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution?
Yes, I am totally aware of it.
What changes related to the new world of work, Industry 4.0, fourth industrial revolution, have you observed in our industry?
Well, it's actually already extremely prevalent in our industry. You know, the whole advent of machine-to-machine communications and the fact that your telecommunication infrastructure actually allows us. If people has built smart devices, you know, we currently have about, let's say, just over 7 billion people on the planet. I think the forecast is around 2030 to have about 50 billion connected devices, which is significantly higher than the number of people, you know, in communication devices. That just means that, you know, it's specifically taking it to our industry in the built environment. I mean, you already have machine-to-machine communication from smart meters to building management systems that are cloud-based, connected, lighting management systems. You know, systems that can start telling you exactly, without any individual being involved with it, whether or not a piece of equipment needs maintenance or stuff like that. So which has got a massive impact, especially in first world countries with regards to the way people manage facilities. Not so much in our country yet, because labour is still relatively cheap, you know, but in countries where labour is quite expensive, you know, there's a whole M2M or IoT capabilities of systems, applications, you know, the software, the whole ecosystem around it actually. It's not just devices, you know.
Yeah.
It's actually the hardware, it's the software, it's the networking.
What's infrastructure
it's
goes
the
with
whole,
it as well.
the whole ecosystem, that enables the guys to let BMS system perform functions human beings typically would do.
Yeah.
You know? Switching off lights. In the olden days we had to go and switch off lights manually. Now it just gets switched off whenever
You do it from your phone.
Yeah, or when an occupancy sensor tells you to switch off lights or switch off air conditioning in buildings, and therefore have massive impacts on energy and energy cost and the whole green economy.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very prevalent in our industry. And it started quite a few years ago. You know, it's we had basic BMS systems. Now these things are more and more integrated. You know, and you get more and more clever devices. You know, so
you get costs coming down, associated costs coming down on those BMS systems and those devices as well as the technology is progressing.
Which will have an impact on in third world countries. The issues is going to impact on jobs, but at the same time you have good efficiencies on energy consumption and those kind of things. So these things come with great benefits, but they also come with their social challenges.
In terms of sort of CKR and the impact on our business and how we operate on that, what have you seen on that in terms of that connectivity?
You know, the biggest change for us will probably be applications that we use, you know, and mobile applications. Because the shift is away from fixed infrastructure to mobile. You know,
you have to be cloud-based solutions that we're running in the company as it is.
Yes, and where I particularly see it working well is where an engineer will go to site with an iPad, do his snagging, and come back. The data is automatically transferred onto his desktop, and he can issue a report. You know, and manage those data objects a lot simpler than having to take a photograph on the past, bring it into a document, writing the whole thing up, sending it, and afterwards
it used to take hours to knock together a 3-page snag list.
And now you can just manage a snag list, and whenever it's closed, and you always can just print the open items. You don't have to go through lists and lists in a document, which is a dumb document. Now you've got actually a smart document. But the fact that you've got a mobile device that you've captured information on, and it's automatically transported into your desktop. You know, you suddenly cut out a lot of labor.
Yeah.
And you're a lot more efficient with it. And that's a typical simple thing, just how an application and a device is now and the networking that's available, helping you to manage a process that took you long, and it's now down.
Yeah.
It's gonna reduce the time you spend on it quite significantly. That's just one simple
yes.
place.
That brings us into the one in how it impacts sort of our industry. I mean, okay, we've discussed the Internet of Things, BMSs, all of that. Going forward, probably the building industry as a whole. Integrating that Internet of Things and that.
I think the way to look at it is you must maybe look at the industry in different layers. If I can say, you would have the typical design entities involved with the industry.
Your professional services.
Your professional services like ourselves, and you have to understand how is it impacting them.
Yeah.
Then you've got to look at the developer or the property owner and how will that affect them.
Yes.
Then you got the property operator, which is the facility management companies managing these facilities on behalf of a property owner or whatever. How is it going to impact them? Then you're going to actually look at the actual tasked services like your air conditioning contractor and all your maintenance contractors, which is actually another level down. How is it going to impact them?
Yeah.
Having this kind of IoT devices or this kind of technology available to all of us. And on a fundamental level, if you look at what building information management system as a whole is doing, it can actually address it from level 1 right through to level 6, which is the facilities management level. And as you start designing a building, you could design, to have level 6 information kind of modeled into your design model. So, for instance, to make it quite practical, in the olden days, we would design an air conditioning system in the building, and there would be an object called a chiller, and that would be it. And the rest of the information will be documented in disconnected information objects like Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or O&M manuals or printed documentation and so forth. While as we're progressing, what I see happening is that as we design, we could design these objects with certain performance data. As we buy these objects, the actual asset information will become available, the actual asset data and all the metadata associated with the object will become available, which would include maybe even maintenance information, which will include
You're talking about
all the service schedules.
Modeling,
and the moment we get a tender back, we could actually update the actual as-builts with the additional metadata that contains all of the asset information and operational management information required to operate that asset, which immediately that information could be passed on to your facility management company, which can extract it and set up maintenance schedules. And he knows exactly what he has to look at, which objects he has to look at. It doesn't get lost because he forgotten to transfer an asset from an Excel spreadsheet onto some other computerized maintenance management system. The BIM information pack actually provides that to the facility manager. If you want to do churn management in buildings, which is probably 75% of the life cycle cost of a building, is probably churn management. It's nothing to do with initial design. You can imagine how important this information becomes to actually optimize the 75% cost play you've got on a fixed asset like a building that could be there for 100 years, 150 years. Imagine La Grada Familia in Barcelona, 150 years in construction, but how do you manage, how do you maintain, how do you look after those objects in those buildings?
They did lose some of the drawings there, and they had to get modern architects to redraw some of it.
Now, that is exactly where it comes to, because in the past we received manual drawings from somebody, it goes into a file, it goes in the guy's drawer, the guy gets fired or another guy takes over and the information doesn't get handed over, and you recapture all of that information. So there's a lot of unnecessary or lost or unnecessary work or dual production on the same system, which if you design from the beginning in an integrated way, it's just a handover point, and the next guy can take the data and enrich it, and take the data and enrich it, and take the data and enrich it. Or we could provide services that delivers an asset with that data already enriched, and the property owner doesn't have to go and pay someone else to go and do it, and he could do it actually marginally cost effective using our services, compared to some other facility management company that will go out and audit, or an asset management company that goes out and audit, just to get asset information. To give you an idea, I mean, in MTN, to do a network audit in Ghana, would probably cost you, in a good sense of 10 million rand.
Yeah.
So how much money? It's basically a whole year's fees, and you could, if you're responsible to design and just capture that, it probably will cost you 200,000 rand to add that data. So the marginal cost is fractional to actually to enhance that, and what it does, it's a real it's a real game changer with regards to the economics around assets. Imagine asset managers now suddenly can have improved returns on the built environment. So they get improved returns, so which stimulates the inherent funds that these properties are in, like Growthpoint or wherever the case may be. And if there's good returns, it stimulates investment into that sector. If there's investment in the sector, there's more capital realized by the asset managers, who will again inject it either into refurbishments or actually get the other assets to the same.
Like that.
So it's a huge stimulation in the economy that I see. Working with information in a seamless way across digital platforms and applications, basically, and people, obviously, because that's to me is quite important. The problem with IoT, or we hear with 4.0, it's actually meaningless if it doesn't affect people's lives. It's pointless saying I'm improving the life of a robot doing this. But if it's affecting me as an individual, it is technology that I will embrace. But if it doesn't impact me as an individual, I don't actually think it means anything. It's just a lot of self-excitement, so to say. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that happening. But it's the real trick is how to make.
Also to find that balance, because on the one hand you're going to look at
you get augmented reality. Look at augmented reality. Augmented reality is basically the utilization of devices that's got different hardware functions like cameras and software and so forth that will help you as an individual to suddenly manage and make your life better. So I see in facilities management, for instance, I see a guy walking into a plant room and holding up the camera, because you know where you are, and you've got a visual reference, and that visual reference is picking up objects which is related maybe with an RFID or something like that. It pulls the metadata in, and I can look at that chiller. I know what chiller is. It brings the metadata up. I know when this last service was done without having to have a piece of document. Just by holding up my phone, I can look at a chiller and say, listen, this thing last service was then, this is the guy who serviced it, it's due, it's not due, this is its age,
list of even service history, anything that can be pulled up.
And that is suddenly enabling me as a facility manager with one device to just, as I do my normal job, by getting that metadata through augmented reality into my life, which makes sense. As a matter of fact, I've seen Google is really for the first time applying augmented reality the way that affects people's life. I mean, if you look at your GPS and you look at your phone and you're in a new city and you walk out the station, you now need to know, I know I need to go there, but I don't know if I'm walking in the right direction. I don't have an orientation yet. So then we all know we walk in this direction. We say, no, we need to walk in that direction. So we turn around and say, no, this is the right way to go. But it takes a bit of time. Well, imagine you're just looking at your Google Maps and holding your camera up, and the augmented reality thing taking street view and those kind of data that's there in Google, bringing it and overlaying it, and automatically by just you turning the device, you will know exactly in which direction you should be walking.
Or integrating that now, unfortunately not available in this country, but into, say, a pair of Google glasses or whatever the case is, and then you don't even need the phone anymore.
You don't even need the phone. But that's where technology affects a human being directly, and it makes life simpler. Much simpler. And so they're moving away from GPS to visual positioning systems that can actually look at the facades of a building, and you really can know exactly
recognize
where this device is compared using that street view kind of 3D data. But for me, the technology is just that. It's technology, and it's meaningless until it touches people's lives. And that's where IoT actually becomes a multiplier. you know, if it's applied correctly, it can become a multiplier, because suddenly it opens up production time for us to spend on other important things, which actually more important things, which what you should be working on. Of course, the downside is, you know, people are doing it right now. Who's going to do it in the future? You know?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we're touching on all the positives, and we're talking about, for example, augmented reality on a cell phone, assuming the world's got iPhones and Google Glasses. Yes. Now, there's obviously going to be the downside. There's a thinking that, well, some of the theories is there going to be job losses, especially in your sort of middle income, middle skill to low income, low skill jobs. I mean, what's your thinking around that? Bearing in mind, obviously, there's also certain issues around, well, you know, it could maybe create certain other new jobs that we don't know about yet.
The huge problem, or the fundamental problem, I think, that's facing us if you have self-driving cars. I mean, self-driving cars will only be made possible with like 5G technology. You can't really do it on 4G telecommunication networks today. We really need a huge amount of bandwidth. And so you need a 5G network for that, but it will become available in first world countries. And in some countries it will be an ideal solution where you've got aging populations like Italy, Spain, or whatever the case. You get a lot of those kind of things. But then you go to Africa, you go to Indonesia, you go to South America, you go to emerging countries where you've got youth and they need to be employed. The fundamental problem that we're going to have is exactly that. I mean, taxi drivers on this planet, how many versus...
Can you imagine the impact in this country with self-driving taxis?
Frankly speaking, I think there will be social revolution if you want to introduce it. That people will burn these things. Frankly, in this country, people will burn. So they will prevent that from happening so that they can continue to do the job. Although it might be a temporary thing until something else is figured out. And that pace at which that would happen is going to be a function of one thing and one thing only, and that's education. And I think that's the huge problem that the world has got, is that are we educating the youth, our children right now, to be able to step up into that gap that will be created as a result of these technologies going forward. And if we're not going to re-educate even ourselves, you know, we're going to have serious problems coping with it. But it is like any technology. I mean, cars came along, you know, and all the people that look after horses, you know, suddenly that disappeared and people looked after cars.
Blacksmiths disappeared and you got mechanics.
Yes, and a crapload more mechanics than blacksmiths, I think.
Especially in Italy with those cars.
But then, so as blue collar work came under huge pressure, you know, if you look at how many people it took to offload a ship, you know, 50 years ago versus now, one crane does in 8 hours what people used to do in 4 weeks, you know, and a bunch of them used to do in 4 weeks. But as you optimize these things, there's other jobs that get created. But you know, I don't know if it's in the same quantum, and I don't have the answer really. All that I know is that it's a great productivity multiplier up to a certain degree. But it's going to create huge social issues, specifically in emerging markets, not so much in first world markets or where the demographics of these markets are different than ours. Where if you've got unemployed youth, you've got people with no future. Where you've got not enough people to do the job. Technology does that; it sorts out a huge problem, you know. And what these technologies will do and can really, but you also have to look at, I mean, in certain cases it's going to really affect the poor. In certain aspects, the whole 4.0 economy is going to really benefit the poor. I can think of, like, just taking health services, for instance, and say it's so mainframe currently still, you know, you've got this huge hospitals and doctors and everything, you know, while through technology you can offload a lot of these services off these mainframe solutions and medical aid funds and so forth, and really make it a lot cheaper. And a person that's now a taxi driver could get a telephone and a simple printed device in his hand and go and see people, capture a quick blood sample, and put it into the phone and make sure this data goes to some AI machine that's analyzing this and comes back and says, listen, this person needs to go and see a doctor, or this person is actually fine. All the markers that we're measuring is fine. And suddenly something that's costing now 3 cents to print you know, and a guy has been paid to do that, and he sees 50 people. A doctor can't see 50 people a day, and it's a huge filtration on these whole low or poor people that can get better medical services at a lot lower costs. And it's offloading this pressure of the healthcare system to really only let the right person at the right time get the right medical service that they need. And you can get systems that monitors and improves people's lives all over, you know. And this is where I see technology really benefiting the poor. Well, you know, and you can say it's a good thing, you know, but at the same time it's going to affect them. But we'll have to shift them from being a taxi driver to being somebody that now becomes a medical officer. But he's not a medical officer, but he has to be retrained. But the nice thing about the technology is you can dumb it down. You know, and I don't want to talk derogatory about dumbing it down. I just want to say,
make it more accessible to the general population, so you don't have to have a whole bunch of degreed individuals.
Yeah, I don't have to really understand or to do the blood analysis. I just have to know how to prick somebody's finger, drop this blood into a 5-finger thing, and it monitors. This monitors for sugar, that monitors for this, that monitors for cancer markers, that monitors for that.
Because the device is going to be doing a whole bunch of it anyway.
And it'll analyze it, I'll plug it into a little machine, the data will go up, you know, the machine-to-machine interface will go to some digital service delivery platform that there's a lot of AI that's going to run and give answers and give actions that the guy must just follow up on, you know. 2 minutes later, he'll get an answer on himself and tell the guy what to do. You fine or you're not fine, and this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. I don't have to be a doctor. I can actually give you better advice than my doctor can give me right now without doing an expensive blood test. So it'll
even getting them, I mean, half the time, even the transport, and that's an issue with things like that. You're going to be still remote. Maybe even it's a device that goes into your own phone. I mean even guys at the office, have got blood sugar meters that now talk directly to their phone, log it, all of that.
You know, continuous monitoring of. You can think what you can do. Your phone itself, you know, with a few other devices, can give you information that's more than what your doctor can do, and it does it on a continuous basis. So you suddenly start to analyze trends and not that point-based thing that the doctor's seeing you once a year at your medical. He's actually monitoring, and if your data goes outside a band, he'll phone you and say, come and see me. And if you're healthy, you don't have to see him. It's like the Chinese. I mean, you pay a doctor if you're healthy. If you're sick, you don't pay him. You know? So the job of the doctor is to keep you healthy, not to deal with you when you're sick. So it's a bit different model. But so I see this kind of technology really benefiting on a large scale poor people, you know, because you can offload a lot of these services that's inaccessible. You know, you look at mobile banking. You know, and you only have to have feature phones. You don't have to have smartphones to do this.
I read the other day that apparently Kenya's got one of the biggest pay by phone industries and that, and they're actually ahead of the US in terms of that. They're making payments with your phone and all of that.
You'll probably find MTN is going to be the biggest bank on the African continent within the next 3 years. You know? The whole new leadership in MTN is ex-bankers. It's not telecommunication people. The group CEO, the group CFO, it's all ex-banking people. Because the future is there. I mean, you got a lot of unbanked people that can suddenly bank. And the only reason it becomes possible is because of 4.0. It's because there's a network, there's digital service delivery platforms that connects people from a mobile device into a banking system that they previously didn't have. I mean, in 2005, we've made it possible for people to buy airtime in London for their family staying in Lagos. You know, and then allowing them to make phone calls, but that was paid for in London, and it was repatriated back into MTN's account. That was 2005. But you can see where this thing shifts the whole thing. And because in Africa, for a lot of European and first world countries, when the mobile device came along, it was the next thing, you know. While in the African continent and emerging markets, it was the only thing. You know, and I think to a large degree, this allows you to leapfrog certain what's the right word, historical infrastructure, or you know, you leapfrog infrastructure you never had.
Yes,
I don't
yes,
have to
yes,
have
yes,
a
yes,
fixed-based
yes,
telecommunication system. I mean, suddenly when DSTV came along, we didn't have to have a cable system for TV. We just skipped that whole thing.
Yes, yeah, we don't have cable at all.
You know, and that legacy kind of infrastructure, which a lot of people have spent a lot of money to put there.
Yeah.
Now something else obliterates it, but these guys will still get an ROI, so they don't move on technology the way we move on it.
Yeah.
So that's why you find that Africa is ahead of the US and Europe.
Yeah.
It's not because we got more money or we're smarter. It's just that was the only thing that we had.
That's it.
And we skipped all of this investment that these guys had to make. And therefore we can accelerate these things a lot faster and get up to speed with first world countries through these technologies. So this is another big thing that this allows us to do. But if you look at the financial sector, if you look at the medical sector, there's huge things that's happening because of 4.0. And the whole thing that 4.0 does, it allows people out there to now, if we want to be smart about this whole thing, the only thing that we have to do is look at the friction points in society, look at the friction points in processes, in systems, identifying it and designing a solution that removes it. And that's the next billionaire, frankly. Look at Uber. I mean, the only friction point that they removed was I don't have to hail a taxi. I don't have to know if the taxi is coming past is occupied or not. You know, I don't have to have the right cash on me. You know, I know the damn taxi driver before he gets there. So just look at the friction points that Uber has removed in a simple process like just getting public transportation, or the lack of public transportation is overcome by enabling private individuals that's got resources like vehicles and petrol and time and whatever to suddenly be available to people that needs it, and it just matches it up. And that's what it's not like there's a lack of resources on the planet. I just think it's totally bucketed incorrectly. There's too much of it in the States, and there's too much of that in Europe, and there's too little of it in Africa. So, and by having these things that's in the hands of different people and creating technology that can do it, you actually start bucketing these or making it available to people when and where they need it. And not without having to allow on taxation to build these solutions where it's too expensive for individuals to do it. Really. And that taxation can then be used to rather provide housing, or really, you know, start being spent in a different way. And this is maybe where, as technology and as this 4.0 and also the next version of this, which I really don't know what it's going to entail, but what this can do is can optimize taxation spending and allow that taxation spending rather to be spent in terms of a social allowance that allow people to have a decent living, or stimulate other things in a different way that right now you can't afford. But because you're becoming more efficient as a result of this, you can, you know, the bucketing of this could be pulled correctly. But it's not easy, it's not simple, and it's not going to happen overnight. But you can see evidence of this happening, you know, every day. You know, Alibaba, you can see that. You can see what's happening with Flipchart and Walmart and that whole model that just happened where Naspers sold 2% or 21% of their stake, $7 billion, $7 billion, frankly. You know, they sold it off to Walmart in India and Flipkart. You see what's happening with WeChat in China. That's basically Tencent, which is why Naspers is where it is. And the way we use WeChat here is very simple as a chat engine. There, it's everything. You know, there's thousands of applications inside WeChat that you don't even know about. It's just built in such a way that it gets there when you use it. So I can sit in my office through WeChat, make an appointment at a restaurant down the road. It will tell me 12 minutes from now my food will be ready. It will be cheaper because I will arrive just in time when the food is ready to eat it, than rather walking there, sitting there, occupying a table for half an hour. And therefore the guy will sell it to me at a cheaper rate because he's got a higher throughput through his window. I could stand in a park and order McDonald's and it will be delivered right to me by a McDonald's guy on a bicycle. So the way that WeChat is applied in China, and it's totally cashless. You know, whether I want to rent a bike on the street or pay for my McDonald's or make an appointment at the barber, or you know, I don't have to wait, I don't have to waste time. There's a lot of efficiency in that society that you can create through that integrated solution. But it's thousands of individualized things that gets glued through proper scalable, digital service delivery platform that makes it possible. Which is nothing else than Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, Alibaba. It's just that. It's scalable infrastructure and ecosystems that allows these services to be orchestrated in a way that makes it convenient for people. So suddenly I don't have to have money on me. If I've got my cell phone on me, I'm waxed. I can, from a bicycle, I don't have to have the right coin to dump into.
That's an advantage we've even seen with our trips up to Ghana, small little thing, but with the whole Uber thing, where
suddenly,
I don't have to have local currency from my office in Sandton to Sandton City, or from the airport in Accra to my hotel there, and there's nothing I need more than my phone on me.
And this is what. This is for me the 4.0 economy. It is much bigger than me. If you really start thinking about and unpacking it, you start seeing a huge amount of opportunities. The trick is getting the solutions to the people that can use it, and that it really makes a difference to people, and it does so in a way that it's not actually costing them anything. It's actually saving them.
Yes,
it's actually helping them. And so the money is shifting from mainframe services to thousands of small businesses, which, in my opinion,
that's my understanding why they implemented that system in Kenya, is because of the the difficulty in putting a credit card machine in each point, or an ATM and things like that. So.
And MTN has put a phone in everybody's hand, and Vodacom has done
everyone's
it.
Everyone's got the phone. That's the thing now.
So use it, and that's the thing. It overcomes all of that lack of other physical infrastructure. I mean, you don't have to have a retail bank outlet in Maiduguri in the north of Nigeria. I don't have to go and physically mainframe from a banking perspective, go and build infrastructure, put people there, train them,
get the cash,
get the cash there, do all of the. I don't, and suddenly banking becomes cheaper, which it should be. You can bank for nothing at Capitec. Compared to banking at another. This is what's happening, and suddenly the services become accessible to the poor. So it will have huge social implications, both positively and negatively. The thing is going to shift. And the thing is, it's going to benefit you maybe on the health-wise, and you will love the technology, but you're going to lose your job as a taxi driver. And that's where the whole education and government.
Well, that comes into the next point now. Actually,
government plays a huge role. To get.
Well, that's the thing now, and that's one of the big issues. I mean, what do you see? What are the new skills that you see as being required for the success in the new world of work, Industry 4.0? I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about now. So you mentioned it already. You can, instead of upskilling some of the workers, you can almost dumb down some of the technology and that, which can help in certain aspects, but. I mean, in terms of skills going forward and that, what do you see is going to be important or relevant going forward for it to work, for it to be successful?
I would probably say the primary focus must be, in exactly that, in primary school. It must start in primary schools, secondary schools, and universities. Right now in South Africa, I think we're selling out. Because of free education and the tertiary level, we're going to be very sorry about what's going to happen on primary and secondary level. If I look at the reports around just the schooling and the state of schooling in the country. And this is where you need to start. When you're in grade 1, you already have to intuitively understand how to use these technologies.
Well, my son already is doing basic coding at school. They're doing that thing you program a tortoise to drive around or something like that. So it's a very basic, high level.
Which is exactly what should happen. But now take this, it's great and good in a private school.
Yes,
which hits 1% of the population. You need to hit the 80%. And this is where governments plays a huge role in terms of the future, because otherwise we educate people that are capable of utilizing these things and making changes, or we're not. And if you're not, you're going to become a dull case, or a social, as it is, we're a welfare state. And we need to get people out of that. And the only way to get people out of that is to give them jobs. But the nice thing about technology is you can use people to do some of these things. Think about Google. Google gets money for every click. If you're a person and you do transactions on, there's going to be different systems that people are going to use. People are going to require just number crunching capability.
Yeah.
You look at blockchain and what's happening with blockchain, and these blockchains will actually become microeconomies in itself.
Yeah.
Forget countries' economies or just the building services economy, or just the retail economy. You're going to have every single blockchain could become a microeconomy. And that microeconomy is going to require, is a digitized little economy that requires processing capability. But if I got a computer at home or I got a smartphone and as technology improves battery life and so forth, and my phone sits idle, it can crunch some of those numbers, but I can be paid for that. So you could, just because of the assets that you have, you could be revenue earning or changing your life. I mean, there's nothing else than these guys mining.
That plays out to, probably, let's face it, more your upper part of the economy, because not everyone in Africa has a computer or even a phone may be capable of that. And again,
correct, but maybe before a guy buys a car, he buys a computer which makes him money instead of a car that's, so it's going to shift. And what I see happening is from people's outlooks in terms of how they grow up. I mean, me and you grow up. I mean, you go to school, you have to go to university maybe, get a degree. That degree enables you certain skill sets. You go work, you go to the bank, you get a loan, you buy a house because you have to own your house, and you've got to get a car because you kind of have to get a car because that's how it enables you to maybe go to work and do some stuff. But as technology changes, I see some of these things are going to become obsolete. Do I need to own a car? Do I need to own a house? Do I need to own things that dictates a certain income that might change the whole playing field around income? Which might be considered a very good salary of 200,000 rand because I'm now very wealthy. Maybe in 50 years' time, you need 50 grand to have the same kind of level of life, and more is just more. It's meaningless, It's just money. Is like Warren Buffett's billions are sitting there. They're doing something, they're investing, but my private things that they're giving it away to bloody other people to do something with it. To the Bill Gates of this world, because you can't live out that money. So what's the point? You need to get it back in the economy in some way. So I'm seeing that salary things could change in terms of what you need. It's not what you want, but what you're going to get what you need maybe. So the world was full of challenges in the First World War. It was full of challenges as the first 1.0 happened with regards to steam, and then electricity came along and that changed a few things. A lot of people got rich, and as you see what happened going along, I mean, the whole global population has been pulled out of poverty to a large degree. If you look at it where it was versus where it is. And I can't, if you're smart about it, I can't see why not. But society will change, rules will change. Countries will be less important. Federal systems will become less. Borders will become diluted. If you think what's happened with the Arab Spring, what's happened with the Arab Spring is because of a 4.0 that was there. What happened in Syria, what happened in Egypt, what happened in Libya. These guys could mobilize because suddenly they had a voice which transcended regulations and transcended social norms even. And suddenly what you see happening is Saudi Arabia, the car sales goes up in Saudi Arabia because women can drive. And so, and this is what's going to happen, and it's happening because of the fact that if the matter is that if something gets said today, 50 years ago, 5 people knew about it. If it happens today, in 5 days, 1 billion people can know about it.
5 minutes.
Exactly. And this in itself are social levers that has got a huge amount of power that wasn't there. I mean, 20 years ago it wasn't there. Just think about it. When I started working, the internet was just basically created. Just about. Email came about in the early 90s in this country. It became possible to do it, and suddenly, the world is different. And it went through the computer age. Now you're now in the 4.0 stage where everything starts to be connected, and we're not being paid for how smart we can do mathematics. We will be having to be educated better to formulate the problem. So if you ask me how education is going to change, what's going to happen, we've got to shift education to problem formulation versus problem resolution. Because I've got computational engines that can do the mathematics in 2 seconds, much smarter, and in all the different derivatives instead of one solution that I can do after 3 hours of calculation. And I might make mistakes. You go to Wolfram Alpha, it does it for you in 2 minutes or less, 2 seconds, man. And so I'm not going to be gauged in terms of how well I can execute the actual mathematics, but having to really understand how to formulate the problem so that I can get the machine to execute the mathematics. And therein lies the rub. It will require, in my view, the education is going to shift from technical skills to social skills. It's going to shift from technical analytics to conceptual thinking. It's going to shift it to logic. It's going to be shifted to critical thinking skills. Which we don't focus on. We teach people geography and we teach people mathematics, and I'm saying, forget it. We need to teach people how to formulate for
It's almost
problems.
A line that they used to use with us at Varsity. They're going to stop teaching what to think and start teaching how to think.
Yes.
Because that's the basis of our degrees, but that's engineering.
And think about our society at this point in time. The biggest absence for me in our whole society, and actually in the whole human bloody population, is a lack of critical thinking. Is we stop to critically think. Even in our jobs on a daily basis, we don't apply critical thinking enough. And so I think that educational shift, if you're going to go into critical thinking, you're going to start in solution and problem formulations. How do I solve the problem of people losing their jobs, taxi drivers? How do I solve that problem? And it's a social problem. And the skills I'm going to need, the social skills, I'll have to be able to we'd be able to churn out people that are not just high in IQ, but very high in EQ, and very high in social IQ, emotional IQ, social IQ, because that kind of cohesion in terms of our societies is going to help us survive. Because without it, it's going to be a harsh ride.
How do you? Now we've got into the people management and that already now. So how do you see this affecting people management? So in your position as the manager, so let's talk more, in the walls and that. Okay, you've already said a bit of...
It's people management is, first of all, we need to start thinking about how we recruit. We need to be thinking, how do we skill up when we recruit, because we either recruit people that are more ready-made, for the future, to help us just improve things. We saw it practically in our business, where I get a guy like Theodore in that suddenly got a certain base of IT skills within engineering skills. So suddenly we can build solutions that takes mistakes out of a financial management process, like just overnight. And I can suddenly enable a technician that's got know nothing about finance to be as smart as a guy, as a CFO with regards to doing a financial report, because the damn thing does do it itself. And so we recruit what is more ready. We recruit people that have got the ability that is excellent with logic and is excellent in critical thinking. So what we train people on is now not how to go and do maths, but it's the training around our staff changes in terms of how we should think about it.
You start looking for that adaptability. It's no longer where did you get your degree and what do you know about building services. It's more
and frankly,
your rate of change and your energy and how you can keep up with all this.
Frankly speaking, when you're done with university, your education is only started. It's going to be ongoing, continuous. And it's how do we set up our systems, our processes, our business, in a much more digitized way that it makes it possible to learn what you need to know, when you need to know it. Instead of trying to know everything, and the world is moving so fast that by the time you've mastered it, it's old. And our kids are doing it already. I said to my son, listen, what do you want to do? You want us to do this? I said, okay, go to YouTube, have a week, look at it, learn how to do it, and let's go and do it. And suddenly you learn what you want to know at that point in time, because that also maximizes learning. Because a lot of time you go on a course, 80% of the stuff we learn there, we actually don't really care about, or we already know it. But why can't I just learn the 20% that I know I've got a gap in? And this is where we need to think about how we do it. So people management, do they have to come to work? Do they work at home a lot more? Do they work in professional teams? Do they?
Now you're looking at the world of work and
the world of work and how does it?
But bearing in mind, there, I mean, what do you? And the reason I'm going to ask this is because I wrote quite a bit on it in the exam on Saturday. But yes, there's those benefits of do the people need to come to work, but a big part of what we do is, we use that human interaction a lot
to get better solutions.
Exactly. So it's your brainstorming. We learned about companies that they actually synchronize coffee breaks. So instead of either banning coffee breaks or saying you guys go at this time and that time, whatever, they encourage everyone to get together in that canteen, sit around the coffee machine or the water cooler or whatever, because you're exchanging ideas. There's that communication. Now, surely there's going to be a bit of a loss of that human touch when you start looking at this remote environment. Let's face it, we've got engineers in this office who we've seen twice this year. We've had staff in here who've been here a year who've asked who's X or who's Y.
Let me show you that. I mean, we've got people, the counter argument for me about these kind of things is we've got people that sit next to one another and communicate in emails. So the issue is not about are you here or you're not here. The issue is how do you network on a continuous basis. And I don't have to be here to be able to network on a continuous basis. And so the orchestration of work will be highly impacted in terms of how you do it. But it requires disciplined people. And it requires systems.
That's actually what I put down. It comes down to the discipline. Because the system can be cheated, and you can have a guy sitting in his PJs watching the Olympics at home instead of working. Or you can have someone who's going to be disciplined and that's doing the job.
But at the end of the day, if they output what they need to output, they output what they need to output. And so how they do it is not really the issue anymore. It's that it gets done. And it will be more applicable in certain jobs, and in other jobs it will be like us. I do believe we need a high degree of social interaction. I do believe we need to get people around and do, but the way we're going to do design reviews is less formalized and a lot more informal. You're going to get people 2 minutes to do it. You're going to change the way you work because technology allows it. Suddenly, just because of our ecosystem that you start building with regards to our technology base that we've got inside the organization, we build and we evolve that, it will start improving the way we throughput designs. And you don't have to redesign the wheel. You should be able to scale on the work that you've already done in the past, and because you're building an IP base. The idea about that IP is that you've got the ability to rapid prototype stuff going forward, instead of start from scratch. So change the way you work. Therefore, but that's got to be the impact. It's going to be we will have to rethink the way you engage the youngsters, in terms of design. In terms of how do they learn, and what environment do you create where that can happen a lot quicker and a lot more in an interactive way. And even if you are removed physically in space, that it still happens because technology allows you to do that. Suddenly the communication layer is there. I can have a video conference, with a guy sitting at home being sick, still being able to coordinate the design.
You can have a full-on conference, 18, 12 people.
Exactly. So I don't want to sit here and debate the benefits of off-site working, on-site working. Every company will have to sort that out. I do believe we require that, but technology allows you just to do these things in a different way than what you've done it in the past. And either you embrace it and you figure out how to do it to your advantage, or you don't. And that's there's no right or wrong answer. It's what that collective group of people find to really work for them as a cohesive team.
No, there's definitely going to be industries where you have to be sitting in that office with someone and doing X because it's a location-based job, whatever the case is. But with us, with what we do, look, we've got guys doing designs of stuff on aeroplanes now, marking up in software, and the minute they touch down in Accra, that gets down gets through to the draftsman with the next stage drawn.
That's the thing.
Well, sometimes,
Yeah. So that's the thing. So changing work, changing people, it is recruitment. It is onboarding. It is continuous training.
Yeah.
It's the actual way of work that you have to look at and say, can we improve that?
Yeah.
So the little bit of things that we've already started to do, just implementing PIM, is how much waste of time is it because you can't use a little platform that just glues your mail and everything together suddenly. Suddenly, just because you're doing a simple action like that buys you time.
Yeah.
And it makes you a bit more efficient. And what do you do with that efficiency is the real question. It is what do you do now with that?
That's one of the advantages of 4.0 is an improvement of your work-home balance. Your work-life, home-life balance. Theoretically, correct.
So we all said bring computers. There's not going to be any more paper. I mean, that's the biggest lie ever sold to anybody. I mean, suddenly we generate a huge amount of paper.
Yes.
The thing with
big
data,
huge amount of information.
You've got a huge. Now you're sitting in 4.0 with big data.
Yeah.
But that data gives you insights that. And 4.0 gives you the capability of analysing that data in a way that you could never do it before.
Yeah.
And I think it's now we see the world in a different way, which we couldn't see it. We couldn't do it before. Now we can do it. We can actually physically design aircraft now with composite wings because we've got the processing power to compute the mathematics, which we couldn't do before. And what we can compute now is what the Cray supercomputers did in the 80s or the 90s, you can now do it your business.
Yeah.
I mean, telecommunication, servers are sitting in telecommunication stuff, just crunching numbers and making phone calls. It's got the computing capacity of what these Crays had before. It's actually
our phones now got more computing power than the computer that put the first moon landing.
I mean, just a simple calculator at that.
Yeah.
Imagine what this damn thing has got. And it's... And that's for us. You can either, for me, these things are happening. You're seeing people that are rapidly taking something and building a business that overnight becomes, Uber. One day you heard about it, the next day they were the biggest taxi company in the world. Yet they owned no taxi.
Assets,
You look at Alibaba, I mean, they're the largest retailing entity in the world, yet they don't own the warehouse. You look at Airbnb, they're probably the largest property company in this world, yet they own no asset. It's all scalable service digital platforms that orchestrates services that are available. It's just you're orchestrating these things to come together. Now, you can either look at this and say, I get mad, because it's attacking my livelihood. I can get totally despondent. I can try and regulate the living crap out of it, or you can get excited about it.
Yeah.
So getting mad won't help. Trying to regulate this won't help. These kind of things transcends things to a large degree. Being despondent is just a bit fatalistic to me. As it's like, okay, the British did that when Hitler did what he did. I mean, where would we be today if they were despondent? It's the same thing. You could give up. It just seems a bit fatalistic to me. So the only real choice that you have is to be excited about these things and to apply your mind to the betterment of society as a whole.
Figure out how to embrace it in your own personal capacity.
And make it work for you, because if it doesn't work for you, it's a real problem. And as it is, we're a slave to it, and it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
So, and I think as people work through this, they'll start to understand what it's busy doing to them, and start to control it rather than it controlling us, which is kind of, to a degree, people are very dependent on this. And correct. You will see companies like Google, companies like Facebook, all of these social entities, even Apple, whatever you want to talk about, that's going to look at ways to really make the technology less intrusive, more intuitive, and more just seamlessly helping you,
Yeah.
And make it less addictive, if I can say, if that's the right word. Make it less addictive and make it more productive. Because, as we say, Facebook, great, but the amount of productivity, it takes away from
Yeah.
people spending on it.
Yeah.
So what's the point of having this if you can't do something useful with
Yeah,
your life?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you suddenly become a bloody Facebook veggie. It doesn't help.
Well, except some people complaining it's becoming a massive market and replacing a junk.
4.0, it's got great benefits and it's got great, and it's also got great challenges that
Yeah.
it presents us as a society. And it's up to us to increase the level of critical thinking in the in the population
Yeah.
to be able to come up with solutions. I mean, granted, just think about agriculture and the fact that IoT helps agriculture to really to bloom. You know exactly how much water to give a plant, not just to water it. I mean, that's addressing efficient use of water. You need to know when to phone the vet because you can actually monitor an animal, with some basic stuff, specifically expensive animals. That's production. You can produce more crop, which can sustain a higher population. But as you start educating,
and just improving a simple thing like an efficiency of not having to drive your farm all day because you've got that interconnectivity and
correct.
that.
And at the moment you start getting this education level up, the global population will stabilize.
Yeah.
There's a direct correlation between these things. So, but it's hugely exciting and it's also hugely concerning, and it would require. What is the nuchter? Sober minds.
Sober, yes,
It will require sober minds
Yeah.
with critical thinking to be able to steer this thing to the benefit of society.
Yeah.
And that's technology for me is only beneficial if it benefits an individual,
Yeah.
benefits a process. Not just sucking energy out of it.
Yeah.
Or people are doing
Well,
stuff for the
just
sake
cut
of
it
doing
out,
it.
yeah,
Some of the
yeah.
stuff is ahead of its time. It's only going to be come to maturity 50 years from now, because at that point society will be right for the technology. That's why we find experiments happening and it dies, because it just can't.
Yeah.
And the next thing is going to go, this whole app development thing, it gets to a point where it saturates and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you'll actually have to design services inside a mail. Never mind go to an app.
Yeah.
As I get my service from a bank, which is now built on blockchain, I can give an instruction by clicking on a little thing in the mail, and the instruction is done. I haven't got to, the thing should tell me. I notice every month you transfer $50 to your kid.
Yeah.
Here's a mail. Do you want to transfer $50 to your kid? Yes. I don't have to go to an application.
Yeah.
A transaction happens. It's on blockchain. It's encrypted. It's secure. It's
Yeah.
and that's where it's going to shift back away from apps. I see into a different flow form. Of really making it simple to use. Because now you're forcing people to go to apps. Well, we went to the internet. Now you go to apps, which is just and then you're going to go back. So somehow people are going to get a lot smarter about how they use it. And this blockchain thing is an interesting development that will allow, as I say, micro economies to be generated across a blockchain stream.
Yeah.
So that suddenly could create wealth in itself.
Yeah.
And because now I don't have to be Standard Bank that invests $100 million in banking infrastructure, I could just pay Donovan $5 a month to provide 0.000% of that infrastructure I need, which is a cheaper model. And suddenly, instead of SAP earning the money, Donovan is earning the money. And that's how you shift revenue streams and potential earnings streams from stuff that you're not even skilled to do, but you're part of that just because you're part of it.
Yeah.
And you're prepared to
Because you bought the computer and you just did that. Yeah.
So this is the interesting things, and the fact that all of these things has got capacity that can be used, and data centers at night has got capacity that other guys could use to crunch numbers. I mean, it's MTN. If there's no phone calls 2:00 in the morning, why can't the University of Pretoria crunch their numbers on MTN computers and give it back?
in the morning,
and don't have to invest, but pay MTN something for that investment. Which is it shifts capital, it shifts resources.
Yeah.
And this is what I think is going to happen in society. It's going to shift capital and resources, and it might be just what solves poverty. We just need more critical thinkers.
Yeah.
And so I'm positive about it, but geez, along the way there's going to be a lot of dead bodies in the wake of this thing.
The ones not willing to
or just
embrace and all of that.
Or it's just impossible to. It's the next generation that's going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see happening. And whatever I said today, the opposite will be actually what's happening. So you can't even predict this bloody thing.
No, you can't. You can't.
So that's the other reality that we're facing. And as long as we really understand. And critical thinking for me is a question of the first step towards critical thinking is you need to be extremely clear about what you don't know.
Yeah.
And conscious about what you don't know. Because the big danger about this, everybody thinks they know smart.
Yes.
But it's actually, I'm consuming data. I don't even know it's fake news because I don't have the ability to critically think about, say, listen, is this true?
That's been a massive rise the last 18 months, fake news.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And imagine the powerful shifts fake news and fake information can create.
Well, that almost starts linking into sort of global terrorism and digital terrorism and that.
So,
you can start riots with things like that.
So if everything they say about Trump is true, he's won an election because of manipulation of something.
Yeah.
And with this Cambridge guys and wara, strictly speaking, the Clintons won it.
Yeah.
On the pure count of things. But in future we're not going to be having the super blocs and the Democrats and the Republicans, because you know what, technology will allow each individual to truly have an equal vote. And if we apply it, there's not going to be a dispute about the outcomes of elections. If we can run that on a proper blockchain technology, which is totally non-manipulable. It could mean a lot of things for democracies. And it could secure, this whole blockchain technology that's coming, it could secure a lot of things which gets abused by terrorist organizations and these kind of organizations. The black web or whatever, the dark web or whatever they're talking about it. So if you can truly create these millions of small economies which is totally digitized and secured, suddenly it tests a piece of information through a blockchain technology before it ends up in a news string through AI engines across so many things for the truth that when it pops out it's got a truth rating to it. And it's crap or it's not crap because it's something else has gone and tested it for you. So but the critical thinking that we require is to build that stuff so that you can take the Joe soap that doesn't understand the truth from its own arse, the truth on the non-truth from its own arse, to enable them to really just deal with the truth in a good way. So this is what I see is going to be the stuff that we've got to be dealing with, and unfortunately you won't be dealing with it by staying the same as you were yesterday.
No, definitely not.
And so the impact on people is we are in constant change. I mean, it's the only constant we have is the change that we have on a daily basis in our lives. But frankly speaking, I get tired of it. So I get tired of it. It's too much. You can only process so much, and your constraint, unfortunately, that we have is flesh and blood. That's the constraint.
With 24 hours a day.
Yes, it's flesh and blood. I mean, you need to sleep, you need to eat, and you can only process so much. And we need to make it simpler. And it's like Richard Branson said, I think he said it, I don't know exactly, but I checked this somewhere. The whole thing about the complexity that's out there is free. It's the simplicity that you've got to really work hard for. And again, what I'm saying is that it will require the education that we're going to require in terms of critical thinking is going to be people that take something extremely complex and make it very simple and intuitive for people to use and changes people's lives on a daily basis.
Like you said earlier, just doubling that technology down a bit.
Yes, and you can use...
Because not all of us are going to be computer programmers.
You need to build this complexity to create that simplicity.
Yes.
Imagine what's happening behind the scenes in Uber. To allow you to walk out of a hotel in Ghana, press a button and have a guy 2 minutes later parking in front of you. Do you understand the complexity? Satellites,
links to your bank,
mathematics,
all
banks,
of that GPS technology,
geez, connecting.
looking at traffic flows and
To say it's going to arrive in 5 minutes.
Yes,
Doing all of that in the back end.
yeah,
So it's extremely complex, but somehow it's been made very simple.
yeah,
And this is, to me, the answer around a lot of things. It's the answer around how to resolve poverty, how to get job losses, address job losses. It is that critical thinking, and it is that education that we require. And as much as it's disruptive, it would be.
yeah.
It's not even disruptive. These days you don't even have entrepreneurs anymore. You get funtrepreneurs. It's guys that do this crap for fun, because it's a bunch of Lucas that sits in the basement and thinking of crap and saying, before they know it, they've got a business idea that kills Amazon, or that kills Walmart. And just because they were having fun, they were not even thinking about business. I mean, what's happened to Facebook is there's a bunch of dormitory guys having fun, rating chicks on the campus. And suddenly it became Facebook. And it became so quickly became a powerful thing. And I think this is what I hope to see where it goes to solve the real social problems that we have. But you solve the social problems. You solve the fight for resources. You solve all of those problems. There's no need to go to war. Why are you going to go to war?
But the war just might be because of the technology and the social problems. That's why
if you're smart about it, it's going to go this way. So, and that's where the scenario thinking around this thing is critical, I think. So I think maybe you can close off with saying, for us, the future is about really understanding the potential scenarios and building the education up to a level of critical thinking that will shape it to the best outcome on these things, because you're going to have idiots that's going to go to a different scenario, and that's why for me this education around this and critical thinking,
critical thinking, and for me sort of adaptability. You've got to almost teach adaptability, and that's what it's
resilience and adaptability is critical. But if we can't analyze and see things for what they really are, we're going to react in a different way. And if you react in a different way, this thing can go in a different direction. But it's to be able to see through the crap and really the truth for what it is, and pushing the thing in the right direction, because you actually have the right data. You can actually go in the right direction. And you can critically look at it and say, guys, we're in the wrong track here. We should be shifting, is AI the right thing? We're going down this track on AI. And there's so many branches we can go down on artificial intelligence, that one of those branches can be disastrous, and another branch can...
One of them's weaponry. Look at those drones, those AI drones.
It requires critical thinking to know where to block and where to open and where to steer it, and without that sanity, and clear minds and sober minds, the future could be... It's going to be a few scenarios, and it's going to depend on us to do that. So... fundamentally boils down to education, and I think curriculums has to change. If we don't have a subject in every single curriculum, in every single university, we should be taught logic. We should be, even if it's Logic 101, or critical thinking 101, and at school we should bring in those subjects to teach people how to just see the truth.
Like you say, no longer just geography or history and what happened in 1886. It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant it's important to know where you come from, to know where you're going to go, but it's more important to know right now whether I'm making the right decision for my future. And I can base this decision on nonsense because I'm interpreting a bunch of data sets and I'm totally being fooled by the randomness in it. Or I can really, through critical thinking, understand. But I can't take this data, which is a Durban map, and try and navigate in Cape Town. I need to see that I'm in Cape Town and navigate, because by ignoring sometimes and just looking at the obvious clues that's there, the visual clues that's there, or the intuitive clues I'm seeing in society about whether it's right or not, and instead of trusting bogus data or being fooled by the randomness.
Yeah.
So for me, this whole future, what this does, it allows us to crunch the numbers. It allows us to cut through things. It allows us to build technology that can distinguish between fiction and fact.
Fact and fiction. Yeah.
And not like you... And because you're being so clinical about this thing, if we don't educate ourselves with regards to emotional well-being and to emotionally connect with other people and on a social level connect with other people, you got another thing coming. And I think the skill set you're going to require is that, less than the technical.
Yeah.
Like in the past. Because a lot of those technical skills are going to be run for free by an AI computer. You know, and our job will be to herd people in the right direction, rather than to crunch numbers. It's not the Manhattan Project; it's a different Manhattan Project. You know? So it's obviously nearly the reverse. It's there to prevent a social atomic bomb, and it requires as much critical thinking and capability as to build the atomic bomb. You know, it requires, but it's so much more complex.
It's a bit, I was gonna say.
You know, so it requires more of us to do. So the IoT for me it's great where it can take us, but we need to be very clear about the scenarios where it could take us. And if we don't have the critical mass in society with the right education, you know, we're going to struggle as a people. We're going to struggle. So I'm very positive what it can do, but I'm also very apprehensive in terms of what it can lead to if we don't do more in this country. We don't have enough critical thinking. We don't have enough technical skill. We don't have enough of that, you know. So we should have more artists and more, you know. We should have a lot of that. Because it's that potential touch that sees technology. You know, you look at Shapiro. Shapiro in a picture could change thinking. You know, we could try and write a thesis. Engineering thesis, why you should be, you know, because all the efficiencies and the calculations and the mathematics are saying we should be doing A. Shapiro can draw a picture and everybody will do A. You know, and you're going to only convince 10% that A is the right thing because people not going to understand what you're saying because it's too complex. So the skill sets around emotional, that connection, that social connection, that's going to become critical, I think, for the future. To survive in a highly, highly technical world that's being built on this IoT, on this 4.0. We have to counter it as a human being, you know, in order for this thing to be in balance. Otherwise, it's going to swing too much in the technology direction. And that in itself is going to leave a poor earth. If I can be really philosophical about it. You know, it's like anything that goes out of balance. This thing is tipping it highly in the scale of AI technology and whatever. So how do we as a human being balance it? It's only if you educate in the opposite direction. If you understand.
I understand.
So art, you know, economics, art, you know, those sciences, which is not truly sciences, but those things are going to become more important, I think, in the future. In my view. Then purely educating more on the technical. We'll have to balance it a lot better. Because I don't have to teach a computer to do maths. It knows how to do it.
It's
being taught.
Yeah.
So lawyers, you know, the advice that I can get, the bot chats that's happening. I don't know, see what's Google just done now. You can tell an assistant to phone and make an hair appointment. And it gets a Chinese chick in a New York shop and it still adapts and it does it. A computer. Making an appointment for... And you're thinking, shit, 10 years from now, it's even... You don't need a PA. You know, this thing is going to do it for you. But we're going to become poorer on another level. You know, you're going to be richer, but you're going to become poor here. And this is going to be where the cohesion is going to be required to get the right scenario to play out long term for the planet. That's my view. So IoT, great. 4.0, great. I don't know what 5.0 is. But I don't think there will be a 5.0 if we don't have if it doesn't contain a huge degree of humanity. You know.
Okay.
So that's the
Just one last one though. I mean, in terms of HR and that people management aspect, what support do you think you'll need from HR to help you manage the people effectively in this new world of work, in this industry that we spoke about? So, I mean, we touched on that with, working out of the office and all of that, discipline. I mean, bringing HR into this now, is there going to be, this is now I'm talking our industry obviously. Now HR is not a massive sort of role in our industry, but...
So I was just going to ask, are you going to need HR?
Well, that's it. I mean,
is
HR one of the things that now falls away?
Frankly speaking, yeah, you would need support. We don't even, it falls away, but it'll have to be replaced by something else, which is maybe not human resource. I don't even know if it's now being called human capital management.
Yeah.
So, but, and I don't want to digress, but if I look at where human resource management started not long ago, as a industry, so to speak, I mean, we first came up with work studies by Taylor. I mean, if you've done economics or whatever, Taylor did the first work studies to try and see how can they optimize designs for people to, they only lift this thing 2 meters instead of 10 meters, and therefore the production process became a lot more efficient. That led to industrial people in the industrial sector, and then they just started off with industrial relations, and suddenly workers and owners, had to be managed because of all this unionization that started to happen, and you had this industrial relation people, and that progressed to something else, and then it became personnel management, and then personnel management was 20 years ago, and then it became human resource management, and now I see today as human capital management, and yet the sad part of it, if you look at stats, is that you got 60-70% of disengaged people in workplaces, which is absolutely atrocious with regards to the track record of the ability of human beings to actually manage human beings in a more effective way. You should be thinking that engagement is up. We've got all these technologies, we've got all this process, we've got all this thinking. People have spent billions of hours, man hours, in terms of studying human nature, and the results are actually going in the opposite direction. You
don't think maybe that's a result of the... I mean, we touched about it now with almost that dumbing down of technology. You don't think it's maybe making the average job now more mundane, so going the other way? So now previously where I needed to think a bit more, now I'm just plugging a couple numbers into a laptop, and I make myself a cup of coffee and I come back and the answer's there. And I mean, that's not very much of a challenge to someone who wants to think on that.
And therein lies the thing around the art rather than the technology. Therein lies the rub for me in terms of as that happens and these mundane tasks gets overtaken by somebody else.
Or a machine or whatever.
Is it a mundane task that gets taken over, or is it making my task mundane? The answer is in the eye of the beholder. Some guys really like doing... I don't know what the answer is, Donovan. All I can say to you is that I think human resources are in a lot of trouble. In terms of, if I look at the data in society, in terms of companies, in terms of disengagement levels in companies, it's a rethink. So, I look at HR entities and organizations, and we're asking what should they do to motivate staff, to make staff work better, and whatever, and they come up with all these programs and stuff, and they throw all of these programs at you as a human resource entity in organizations. And what really should be happening is that they should stop doing stuff. So like I once said to human resources at MTN, the guy said, but we should do this, and then there's $4 million we're going to spend on systems and whatever. And systems can help you, and it can help you make your life a bit easier, and that's what it should be doing. And that's the only stuff that I want to do, is just make people's lives a bit easier, not complicating it. But now I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And I said to them, but stop thinking about how you should be doing this. Maybe just stop demotivating people. So figure out what not to do, in a sense. Yes. So for me, I think the first step that human resource organizations should ask themselves is, what should we stop doing that is not really working, because it's not translating in more engaged staff. And I don't know what the answer is, frankly. You know,
Yeah,
you mean asking me?
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
really know
yeah.
what the answer. All I know is that they're in trouble, and that
Yeah.
human capital is in trouble. I don't know what they call it now, but the next step is to help me be more balanced. Help me in a job. I don't know how you're going to do it
Yeah.
because I can't even help myself half the time.
Yeah.
So how the hell can I get an external entity help you be more balanced
Yeah.
in a society and in a world that becomes more complicated every day?
And at a rapid rate as
So,
well.
do we need we need guys to figure out how not to demotivate staff and just do that stuff so that people can actually do what they want to do as people and self-actualize. Because if I can self-actualize and do what I want to do, I'm happier, you know,
Yeah.
by default. So, for me, as an organization, as a society, and in this industry, I think is in trouble in the sense that we get people working here and we need to look after the people, then the people will look after the business. You know? Because if you forget the customers, forget the clients out there, if we can get these people to be more productive and more self-actualizing and happier, the result will be, you know, we're sometimes trying to manage the customer interface. Well, we actually should
that's
be...
sort of Branson, isn't it, as well? Look after your staff because they'll look after your business.
That's exactly true.
Yeah.
Because everywhere you go, people are more engaged. If I can just shift my engagement from 30% to 40%, you know, I've made a massive productivity improvement in the organization just because people are engaged and they want to be engaged.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has got nothing to do with HR. It's got all to do with leadership. So what HR and what human resources should be, I don't know if they should be doing something or really
less of something.
What the HR guys should be becoming is close coupled leadership mentors, you know, to the leadership in the company that has got a social voice and that is an influencer. In the company, in the organization. And don't for 1 minute think that the CEO, he is an influencer, but he might have less influence than a guy 2 levels down. And do we really understand who those influencers are in the organization? So what HR should be doing, in my opinion, is actually truly identify influencers and get them to influence the whole organization to move forward. And how they do that is a different model than giving me performance rating systems and pay rise calculations and shit like that, because frankly, you know, we could have cracked that crap ourselves. You know, I don't need anybody else to do industrial relations. If it allows us as influence and be influenced so that we can do it more. You know, if I got somebody that works with me to try and help me to build a better team, it's worthwhile paying that guy than to sit there separately in the HR thing and figuring out HR shit that they have to do. That's just going to give me more work to do. That makes me less less liking them, you know, in terms of. But don't give me this crap to do. Just help me help my team, you know. And to me, that's where I see the HR shift is happening. I see it. You know, people talk HR partners. They talk all this crap. I really see business mentors taking the role of, you know, the economies and taking the role of HR and helping the technically competent people to really build that social cohesion that's necessary to have successful businesses. And we don't always have the skill. And unfortunately, a good engineer is not always a good manager.
Correct.
And a good leader and a good CEO is not necessarily the best, you know. CEOs can kill companies. But it's like that, the president, and he's got this chief of staff, you know, which really helps the president doing, you know, and every one of us should have a chief of staff, you know, that helps me make my whole team better and brings that skill set that makes a better leadership unit. And to me, the answer around HR is, how the hell does HR help these influencers and people in positions of power or whatever they are, just of influence or in power, frankly power as well, just to build that social cohesion in teams a lot quicker and a lot stronger. And if you can do that, the whole organization will benefit. That's how I see HR evolving. I don't Don't tell me I've got a talent management. Fuck it, if I got a guy with me that can help me through processes that they understand to recruit a better person. You know, that is what is more valuable to me than.
It's like we said, no, it's not just looking at that CV and the guy went to University of X and this is it anymore. It comes down to that, and to a certain extent it is applied, but coming down to that interview and reading that personality more. I mean, everyone can have a degree from UJ or Stellenbosch or Wits or whatever the case is.
It's
but it comes down to that, you know, how's the guy applied? What's that energy like? And trying to read that more. So again, more of a soft skill than.
Yeah, HR is going to be different in the future because I don't see them succeeding in their current models. So they are evolving as we're speaking. What I'm telling you is
before
what
was an employee number
like.
and you earned X, Y, Z, and that they kept the file and you got your written warnings and all of that. It's a lot more interactive now.
But you need to prevent that crap in the first place.
Yeah.
Because if I've got an engaged staff, you know, there will be less of this in any event. So I don't need this industrial relation kind of activity. And frankly speaking,
you got to relate
half of the crap can be done by automated processes in future, which I don't need an HR guy. You know, I can get industrial relations device from anybody in the damn industry. You know, if I do this, this is what you do, this is what you do. A bloody chatbot can give me an answer, you know, better than a lawyer, you know. And it's already, IBM Watson is already 80% accurate compared to 70% accurate in human lawyers. So why do I need that kind of technical support around certain things if it's going to be available through what 4.0 gives us or enables in the workplace? It's going to be what that person helps me as an individual to complement my skill set. And provides me with that social skill sets that I might lack as a person of influence, but I'm too much of a technocrat. And in combo, you're a much better team to build better teams. And the moment I can create more social cohesive teams, I get better companies, I have happier customers, it translates economically.
Yeah.
You know, that is the way I see HR change. They've got to help us cope with the fallout.
Yes.
And help us with the counter thinking, you know, not to tip the scales too much in the sake of technocracy or whatever the right English word for that is.
I don't think there is an English word for that.
Technocracy, what is it? I don't know what the right English word, but you know, what I'm after. So it's that they, you know, I don't know. Human resources, I don't know.